statement, it talks about seed time and harvest, and you get the impression, although mistaken, that immediately you sow a seed, you will harvest. But in between seed time and harvest, there is another season called waiting time. So waiting time is the time between seed time and harvest. When you have sown your seed, when you have done the right thing, and you are expecting a good result, there is waiting time. And that is what I am focusing my teaching on today. So, James chapter 5, verse 7 will be my main text, and I would read another one from Galatians later. But James chapter 5, verse 7. Therefore, be patient, brethren, until the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth, waiting patiently for it until it receives the early and latter rain. So what James basically is saying is, just as a farmer waits for the fruit, we must also wait for the Lord. However, for my message today, I am not focusing on the coming of the Lord. I am focusing on the analogy that James uses. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth, waiting patiently for it until it receives the early and latter rain. Now, if you read James's statement in the context of Genesis 8:22, which says there is seed time and harvest, James is saying between seed time and harvest, there is waiting. So whenever we sow a seed, whatever that seed is, and we expect a harvest from God, there is a season, though not mentioned, present. And that season is the waiting season. Many times people sow a seed and instantly expect a harvest. And in the passage in James, the Apostle James used the word wait twice. He used it twice. So what does it mean to wait? He said we should wait patiently. What does it mean when the Bible says we should wait? What does it mean? I will give you two ideas. First, it means to remain where you are. When a person is waiting, they remain where they are. It can be physically staying where you are, mentally staying where you are, spiritually staying where you are. Now, staying where you are is not an excuse to be lazy or doing nothing and just hoping that everything will be fine. No, it is about taking a positive step in a direction and remaining committed to the direction you are moving in. So when we say somebody is waiting, it means they are doing the same thing. They are committed to the same process. So wait is remaining where you are. Secondly, to wait is to look forward to something. To look forward to something. To have a sense of expectation. To be in preparation for something to happen. To have hope. A farmer has hope for a harvest. And if he has no hope for a harvest, they will give up on their harvest. Similarly, if we have no hope that Jesus is coming again, we will give up on him. And when you sow any seed, if you have no hope that God will give you a fruit, you will give up on the seed. So waiting is to remain where you are and to look forward to something. Now, with that in mind, we know what waiting is. We are where we are and we are looking forward to something. With that in mind, I will read the passage again from James. And it says, see how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth, waiting patiently for it until it receives the early and the latter rain. So here he's talking about the farmer, and you can just put yourself in that position that you are the farmer. The farmer is the person who is sowing the seed. That's the farmer. And there are two mentions of wait. First, the farmer waits for the precious fruit. He's waiting for the precious fruit of the earth. That is, waiting for the results, or waiting for the harvest. The end result. After planting the seed, he waits for the fruit. So when we do something, for example, this Sunday is First Fruit Sunday. People give their first fruits, people tithe, people give an offering, and they expect God to bless them. But they have to wait. What are they waiting for? They are waiting for the harvest. They are waiting for the blessing. They are waiting for God to give result to what they have done. But that is not the only wait the farmer is waiting for. The first wait is he's waiting for the precious fruit of the earth. But then there is a second wait. He is waiting patiently to receive the early and the latter rain. The early and the latter rain is process. Waiting for a process to be completed so that you can receive your harvest. So, what we learn from the passage is we wait both for the fruit and the process that will produce the fruit. So, if I have sown a seed, I expect God to give me the harvest. Between the time I sow the seed and the time I receive the harvest, I must wait. What am I waiting for? I am waiting for the harvest. If you don't know how to wait for both the harvest and the process, you will abandon your harvest. Maybe you've even budgeted for your harvest. So that's your first waiting. You are waiting that what you have planted will produce fruit. But what you have planted will not just produce fruit. There has to be rain. So you must also learn not only to wait for the harvest, but also for the rain. The rain is the system, the process that God puts into motion so that your harvest will come. And James says that husbandman or the farmer waits both for the harvest and the rain that produces the harvest. To explain that concept further, we read from Galatians chapter 6, verse 9. Galatians chapter 6, verse 9. And let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not lose heart. In verse 7, he had said, don't be deceived, God is not mocked, for whatever a man sows, that he will reap. Now, if you only look at verse 7, it just tells you whatever a man sows, that he will reap. But when you come to verse 9, it's telling us that between sowing and reaping, there is something. What is that? He says, don't be weary while doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not lose heart. So, you don't just sow a seed and reap. You reap in a season that Galatians calls the due season. The due season. What is this due season? The due season clarifies the principle of sowing and reaping. So whatever we sow, we reap in due season. Have you ever seen somebody sow something very bad? Somebody do something bad. And you tell the person, or people say, what you have done, you will reap what you have sown. Have you had that experience? Or as we say in our part of the world, God will salary you. He will salary you. God will salary you. So somebody does something, we say, you will reap. And sometimes the person does something bad, and you expect that immediately something bad will happen for him to see that what he sowed is what he has reaped. But have you also noticed that the people do something bad and judgment doesn't come instantly? And sometimes you get disappointed. He has sown, he must reap. Because in between sowing and reaping, there is a waiting period. And what are you waiting for? For the due season. A due season. In the same way, somebody does something very good, and we expect that next week good things will happen, and then next week nothing good happens. And then you wonder, but I did good last week. Because you don't just sow and reap. When you sow, you reap in due season. One of the things that bothers a lot of Christians when they give, especially give an offering, because we use the language sowing seed, is they believe that if they give this month, they will prosper this month. Or somebody says, just trust God and give, and the Lord will bless you abundantly. And the moment you give, you are expecting a harvest. But in between the sowing and the season of harvest, there is waiting. And the reaping takes place in due season. So for example, when I sow corn at the beginning of the planting season, I will reap at the harvest season. If I sow corn in March, I'm not going to reap it in December, because that's not the due season. I'm going to reap it around June or July, because that is the due season, the right time. Similarly, God has also appointed times and seasons for things to happen. So let's say, for example, a child who is 8 years, 9 years, and Jesus says those people children have more faith than adults. And a child comes and says, oh God, our help in ages past. God, give me a car. And he has all the faith. Will God give him a car? Why? Because it's not the due season for him to have a car. He doesn't have the maturity to handle a car. So although he has done the right thing, God will answer that prayer in due season. When is the due season? When the right time comes. When is the right time? When he reaches maturity. So there are things you pray for now you will not receive, because there is a time, a season for you to be ready for the answer. And until you are ready for the answer, God holds on to your harvest until the due season. So the due season is the right time. Secondly, the due season is the fullness of time. Fullness of time. Fullness of time is a very interesting concept. You sow corn and you sow them all on the same day. Do they all mature the same day? No. So although all of them are sown the same day, their fullness of time differs. So you go to your farm and you realize some of them have matured. Then you go the next day, others have matured. Then you go next week, others have matured. In fact, some mature a month after, but they were all planted at the same time, because their fullness of time is not the same. Fullness of time. So let me use another analogy. Pregnancy. Two ladies, two women, married. Not girlfriends, married. Become pregnant on the same day. Not by the same man, by their husbands, on the same day. Are you going to say that because they became pregnant on the same day, they will give birth on the same day? No, because the fullness of time is not the same. A group of people go to school. They all graduate on the same day. Are they going to find job the same day? No. Why? Because there's something called the fullness of time. And the fullness of time for me is not the fullness of time for you. So the Bible says, when I sow seed, God is going to give me my reward in due season. And part of the due season is my fullness of time. So I cannot say we started at the same time, we must end at the same time. It doesn't work that way, because the due season is not the same for everybody. The due season is the right season. The due season is the fullness of time. And thirdly, the due season is the complete process. The complete process. That's a very important one. It means that all the processes must go through. So, for example, if I planted a seed, but it didn't germinate, I will not have a harvest. For me to have a harvest, the seed must go through germination. It must grow at certain rates and grow through that process. And it is when I have gone through all the process that I get my harvest. Paul put it this way: I have planted, Apollos has watered, God gave the increase. There are different processes. He does something, something else happens, and then the harvest comes. So many times, there is a process our seed must go through. If I plant a seed, I must water it. I must clear the weeds. I must make sure that no bird comes to eat my fruit before its time. I must protect my seed. If I don't protect it in due season, I would not have completed the process, and there will be no harvest for me. What does it mean? It means that between the time you start a process and the time the process matures, you do not lose heart while waiting for the due season. You don't lose heart. You don't lose heart. And every seed we plant has a due season for maturity. It could be a business seed. It could be a financial seed. It could be even in a relationship, maybe in a marriage. Somebody told you, you and your husband are having a problem. Go home, and before your husband comes home, dress this way or put on that perfume, and he'll be fine. The marriage problem will be solved. So you go home, you dress nicely, you put on your perfume, your husband comes, doesn't notice it. Then you say, that thing doesn't work. But if you believe you have hope of a harvest, then the next day you're going to do the same thing. And the next day you're going to do the same thing. The next day you're going to do the same thing. Why? Because the due season requires a process. So you started a business and you believe God will bless me, God will prosper me. Then you start a business, you're struggling and struggling and struggling and struggling and struggling. There is a due season. And you don't give up through your struggle, you stay on course. Jesus gave the parable of 10 virgins, couldn't wait. 5 couldn't wait. They didn't prepare for the bridegroom. And he called them foolish virgins. I don't know what he calls us. We are not virgins, but are we foolish? Are you a foolish husband? Are you a foolish wife? Are you a foolish businessman? Are you a foolish pastor? Are you a foolish person? And why did he call them foolish? Because they didn't anticipate the wait. They expected that when they got there, the door will open. May I just let you know, doors don't just open. They wait and they open in due season. And if you start the process, you're going to stay through to the due season, and the door is open. One of these days, when you have no expectation, something will hit you, boom, and you wonder, why did it happen? You've been planning for it for the last 20 years, and today was your due season. One of these days, you'll be walking somewhere and a door that has been locked for so many years, boom, opens. And you ask, what did I do? I haven't done anything. Oh, you've been doing something for 5 years. But this is the due season for it to open. There is a waiting time between seed time and harvest. And we must not grow weary in the waiting season. Next week, I'm going to talk about the harvest time.